We often talk about how we resist each other's energy in relationships, whether it's our marriage, our family of origin, but how we are constantly pushing the other person, saying, no, you're okay, you're okay. But we don't often talk about how we resist our own energy and what that looks like, us shutting down how we feel and telling ourselves not to feel something. So that is what we are talking about today. Welcome to The Connection Codes. This is the podcast where we break open our emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tierra Wages, and joining me is marriage and family therapist, clinical sexologist, Dr. Glenn Hill, and his partner who discovered it all, Phyllis Hill. And together they have founded The Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And we're so glad you're here.
Yes. Hello, world.
Hi, friends. Wow. So I'm smiling because now I'm the partner who.
Yeah, I'm really struggling with this here. What? Because I don't know, you're more than incredible.
Well, see, the word incredible actually means not believable.
Right.
See, that's what I felt.
Somebody emailed
But
and
that word
told
shifted
us.
definitions. Nobody thinks that anymore.
Yeah.
But
Do you like
technically, that is what it
incredible?
means.
Do you?
Well, I never.
Do you like-
I liked it. But
Okay.
I didn't ever think it was the opposite. Like you're not very credible, right? Like I didn't experience that. So I like it.
Okay. Well, here's what I want to say about this topic. Okay. Phyllis Hill is the one who got curious. She is the one who started questioning everything, and she ultimately helped form the connection codes. Dr. Glenn also often says, like, I'm the educated one, Phyllis is a smart one. So it's easy for us to share like LMFT, like his credentials. But if we need like life credentials beside Phyllis's
Yes.
name,
There you go.
Yes.
There you
because
go.
her life
Absolutely.
experience and what has brought us here is what has created this.
Yeah, and I often share that, as far as I know, and I'll hesitate to say always or 100%, but I think Phyllis was the one that was the key point of every benchmark in our relationship. She was the one along the way that said, "Oh, well, we should shift this." And there's so many of those. And again, I'm a smart guy, but she's the one that actually figured out what matters and what works in the moment. So yeah, that's a degree in and of itself. That's
Totally.
for sure.
Okay. So I'm going to stick with incredible because you're too good to believe. Okay.
you go.
So now
okay.
anyone that's listening to this podcast, previous podcast, future podcast, now you will know why Phyllis actually is too good to be believed. Everything that she has done is just incredible.
Yeah. And worst case scenario, it gets people to check it out and go, I can't believe that she said that. Okay, well, check it out and you'll find out that
But we
she's
do
on point.
appreciate like our listener that wrote in and it's like, hey, this is what a lot of people are interpreting incredible to me nowadays. You know, I appreciate the question and asking us to dig deeper because Phyllis deserves all of the credibility that she has earned and worked for
Wow.
sure.
Well, thanks.
So we're not going to resist that energy anymore. I think I'm always resisting it here recently. And Phyllis, you're the one who brought this topic forward about us resisting our own energy. What were you thinking with that?
Well, it's interesting. A friend of ours suggested we watch this show, and it has to do with basketball. And so we've been enjoying that. And there was a coach who said, don't be afraid of being afraid. And I don't know, it just struck me. Like I thought about it so much so that I actually wrote it down because I think, wow, there's power behind that. And it kind of goes back to resisting our own energy, resisting. Like if we are so afraid of being afraid, then we don't put ourselves in new situations or we don't try new things.
Okay, hold on. Say that again. Start at the beginning. If we are too afraid of being afraid, say that.
If we are too afraid of being afraid, then we don't put ourselves out there.
Man. Yeah.
We just, it's like we get stuck in that place. And it's like, I don't even want to go anywhere close to fear. So I'm not going to even attempt that. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to try that.
Yeah, I think that happens for so many people that they get stuck. And I would say that's a theme of my life. There's so many things that I didn't attempt because I thought, well, there's so much fear of pain, of failure, of struggling, of defeat, whatever. And if we can unleash people from that, because you think about how we're born, newborns, we have what is Rowan now, probably
A week.
old. Well, he's going to try everything. He's going to try to walk. Well, that's absurd. He's never done that before. And he's going to, probably not this week, but he's going to try to walk many, many times. And he's going to fail at it, and he will be undaunted. He will just keep going. And that's been true for every human ever.
Wow.
That's how you learn to walk. And so when we're in our original coding, we don't care. We're just like, we're just going to try stuff. I was holding Rowan the other day, and he's just looking around the room, and we were just laughing with his siblings about it, that he's mesmerized by everything. So he just is taking it all in. Well, there's no birthday where that's supposed to change. We're just supposed to give it our best shot, go for it. But then we get so flooded with emotion, we don't process it well. We get flooded with fear, with pain, whatever, shame, and we don't process it. And so then we're completely shut down. And then we plateau out and stay that way. Many people their entire lives.
Well, even going back to just that verbiage, we resist our own energy. It's like, well, what does that look like? And I think so often we can even talk to ourselves and say, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, instead of going, what's happening with me? And then getting to that emotion, like, oh, what is happening with me? And we've had a lot going on this week. We had a new grandbaby born a week ago. We've had Glenn's mom has had a few rough days. And, yesterday I was in the car, and I was just like, man, my head is not in this game. Like, my head is not where it needs to be right this moment. We were heading to a luncheon where we were speaking, and I just stopped and said, okay, what's happening with me? And tried to kind of figure out, okay, and I wanted, my first word was, my body feels overwhelmed, but we know overwhelmed is not a core emotion. So I'm like, okay, let me dig more. What is happening with that? And I was like, okay, I feel fear of all the changes with Glenn's mom, and what does that mean? And me trying to figure it all out. Feel loneliness in that because I carry most of that burden. But it helped me so much just to process that in the moment
And sort through it.
instead of going, you're fine, just get this luncheon over with, like you'll do great speaking, and you've got
which
this,
you did.
you've done it a million times. Like that would be resisting my own energy and plowing on through. Let me just plow on through. And that is resisting your own energy.
100%. Everything y'all are saying, I feel like we've not talked about this very much, and I'm just over here soaking it in because I identify, and I think everyone listening identifies with that to an extent, whether it's that we're not putting ourselves in situations because we don't want to feel that emotion. We resist our energy by avoiding situations because we don't want to feel the negative emotion that comes with it because we don't know how to process that. So we hold ourselves back from opportunities, conferences or networking events, job opportunities, because we have imposter syndrome, which is fear, and we want to avoid that. We hold ourselves back from sex because there's shame, there can be shame in it. So we resist our own energy. We avoid what could happen because we're so afraid of feeling the emotion. Or you've talked a lot about the death of your mom, how much you resisted your own sadness because you were so afraid of what that sadness would do to you. And I think that is so powerful for our listeners to think about, what am I holding myself back from because I'm so afraid of the emotion that can come from that thing. And some of those things are really good things.
Yeah.
I've had friends that are paralyzed in fear of having kids. They want kids, but they're so afraid of the emotion of the fear that it's stopping them because the newness of it, they don't know what to expect. So it's just easier to say no even though that's what their heart desires.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and people typically, and of course every human is unique, but where typically fear is associated with either pain or shame. You just mentioned imposter syndrome. It's the fear of the shame that people are going to find out that I'm not all that. I'm not what I'm presenting myself to be, which is true for most people. There's a few people out there that don't experience that I've seen, but that's true for almost everybody. So, and I'm sure there are people in the audience going, "Oh, but I'm just a positive thinker. I'm always focusing on the good. I'm always focusing on the positive." Yes, absolutely. I'm not taking away from that, but the problem is if that's the mentality alone, then you don't process through what's happening for you. And it sounds good to be like, "Oh, we'll just start the day, be positive minded." Yeah, but that's our goal, but we do that through processing through what's happening. So again, just like with Rowan, he's going to learn how to walk. He will fall down a bunch of times. At some point, he'll fall down and he'll probably cry about it. And we're not going to say, no, stop crying. You're not allowed to cry because you will eventually learn to walk. So think positive. Well, that doesn't make sense. Of course, we can see that with a 1-year-old. Well, there's no birthday where that changes. So with this 15-year-old, this 30-year-old, whatever, 40, 50-year-old, for them to be able to process through what's happening for them, then they will end up being positive thinkers. But what we do typically is we shut people down and we shut ourselves down. We're like, stop feeling defeated, stop, being overwhelmed, and we don't process through what's happening. So then we stay defeated, and then we're just basically BSing ourselves, where it's like, think positive, think positive, think positive, and I'm ignoring what's really happening for me at the core, which is very, very unhealthy.
And then the outcome of that, Phyllis, is what you were saying. That if you had just been like, okay, I'm overwhelmed and I'm going to show up and I'm going to speak, then you would have walked into that speaking event. I am certain you would have done a great job to the people in the audience. But to you sitting on the stage, you would have felt a weight on you the entire time. I also went to an event yesterday, and the guy was talking about how we walk around with backpacks on, and those, what are we carrying in our backpack? And as he was saying it, I literally to myself, like someone else yelled out, like, a bad relationship. That's what's in his backpack. And in mine, I thought fear. Fear is in my back. That's what I carry around. And so when we are resisting our own energy, we're putting all of these emotions in our backpack and we're carrying them around, and they're getting heavier and heavier. And we're showing up in spaces, in our jobs, in our homes, with our families, weighed down because we're not sorting through our emotion. Like you spent, how many minutes did you spend sorting through your emotion yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably 60 seconds. Like, it was crazy once I slowed down and said, what is happening with me?
Yeah.
And it was interesting because we shared this during our speaking. And I had several people afterwards come up and talk to me. And when they were like, okay, help me understand like what you're going through with your mother-in-law. And it's almost like they didn't really understand that me just being able to say it is enough. Like, it's enough for whoever at that moment is hearing me. Like, because this one person in particular, she asked, well, doesn't now Glenn need to come back around and address each of the things that you said? And I'm like, no, I don't need that of him. I just need him to know what's happening with me in this situation with his mom. And it's like, we don't really understand the power behind not resisting our own energy, like tuning into ourselves, asking, wow, what is happening with me? And giving ourselves permission to actually say it, like instead of going, oh, I shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah, when you shared that yesterday morning, I mean, I'm sitting there with you. I know how competent you are. I know how amazing you are at presenting. I've never done an event with you where I walked away going, oh, she was subpar. I mean, you are always on point, and it's just fantastic. So I could have resisted your energy and go, what, babe? No, you're going to do great. You're going to be amazing. You always are. But I didn't. And that's the reason it took whatever it was, 60 seconds, because I didn't try to reassure you, which is I think that's the most counterintuitive part of the connection goes, because people think that would be the thing to do. For me to go, what, babe? No, you're going to be awesome. You're always awesome. I'm so proud of you. You're great, which sounds so good. It just doesn't work. It's a great intention. It's a bad application. And I was just present with her. I oohed her. I found out I asked her what she needed. And she goes, nothing really. I just needed to convey that to you. And then we're rolling.
Well, it's interesting. One of the other things that came out yesterday is like the idea, which I know we've said this before, but we don't like sitting in pain. It's like we want to distract ourselves. Yeah. It's like turn on the television, turn the radio on. Let me get on social media and scroll, because I don't want to ask myself, what's happening with me?
Yeah.
I don't want to acknowledge that there's pain. And well, what is the pain? What's happening with that? And it's like, even to, a few minutes ago, you mentioned when my mom was dying and I didn't, I would say to Glenn, I don't have time to be sad. Well, I had fear of being sad.
Yeah.
And my body had fear of being sad because I had already gone through this when my dad died. And that was a memory that was very much in my body and in my mind. And so it's like, ooh, I'm really afraid of that. That looks too big. And to realize that's kind of like, don't be afraid of being afraid.
Yeah.
Like that is good.
Yeah.
And, I had to learn the hard way. Sadly, I had to learn the hard way that no, don't resist your sad. If you're feeling sad, lean into it. Yeah. Which is, that is the opposite of resisting your own energy, is lean into it. If you're feeling sad today, lean into that and figure out, well, what is happening with me? Say it out loud. Say it to yourself. And, our hope is always that you have people in your life that are safe for you so that you can also say it to someone else. And, I'm definitely blessed in that. And I would say it's been a pretty tough 48 hours. And so I have reached out to a lot of people that I feel safe with to just process what is going on with his mom and what the next steps are going to be and the decisions that need to be made. And, there's definitely a part of me this week even that's like, I don't have time this week. Not this week. I don't have time this week. But that's life. Like if we could all plan, that'd be almost hilarious, right? Like it just doesn't work that way. If we could all plan all the inconveniences of life. Yeah. Well, it doesn't work that way. And so the best thing for me is to lean into the pain, lean into it, and then say to myself constantly right now, what's happening with me? And, and it is like I feel it so much in my body. It's kind of a crazy feeling. And when I get what I would say is more dysregulated, like I feel it in my body in a like there's a shift, like as in actually I'm not able to even take anything more in. And so sadly, like I know I was rude to Glenn last night, and part of it is that it's almost like I am like in a kind of a fog, but also just this heavy, like, man, I can hardly put all of the pieces together that I'm responsible for right now, both with his mom and then a newborn and our grandbabies. Our kids all live near us, so I'm a big part of their lives. And, yesterday my daughter was reaching out like, hey, Mom, when can you come back and help me? And then my other daughter, who's trying to get ready to move, she's like, Mom, when can you help me? And then there's Glenn's mom, and I'm just like, ooh, there's just a lot right now. And so that's when so easily I can be rude to the one I love the most, who's with me all the time, and that's Glenn. And it's like, oh, I need to be constantly processing, not just once a day, but it's like a constant. And, it is that reality that if I resist myself in that or try to just put it aside, like, oh, I don't want to think about that right now. Well, that's actually resisting my own energy.
Right.
It's not healthy. It's not good to say, I'll think about that later, because my body right now is screaming, no, I need you to think about it right now.
Yeah.
And that is when we try to, sidetrack ourselves or, do things instead of just slowing down and going, whoa, what is happening with me right now? And
Well, I want to emphasize to people because I do, especially in private sessions, that individuals say, "Oh, well, we're doing the wheel every day." The goal of the core motion wheel is not the core motion wheel. The goal of the core motion wheel is the exercise, so that this afternoon, when it happens in real time, that's all that matters. Yeah. Which is what we all did when we were 12 months old. We never looked at our watch, said it's 3 a.m., I'm going to wait till 7 to let mom and dad know what's happening with me. We never did that. We're coded, we're hardwired, faith-based or otherwise, doesn't matter, it's a human condition. We are hardwired to convey immediately in the moment. There's no birthday where that changes. And I do sit with people that are like, oh, well, we do the wheel every day. I mean, I want you to do the wheel every day. I don't even care if you do the wheel every day as long as we're actually getting you back to your original coding where you're processing in the moment. Because if you're not doing that, that's called an emotional dam. It is being dammed up. Right. When you step on a nail, you're supposed to yell. If you want to cuss, have at it. I don't care. And you feel pain. You don't wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour. You don't wait till you do the wheel that night and say, hurt. Let's see, hurt. Oh, I felt hurt this morning when I stepped on a nail. Of course not. You convey the pain instantly. That's what you're supposed to do in the moment.
So, in just this conversation we're having right now, which of course I know we're live. So here we go. I'm processing in this moment because I'm realizing what was happening with me last night. And because I was rude to you, and not that people aren't capable of being rude. I'm just not rude to you on a daily basis. Yeah. And I'm realizing as we're talking that I had spent 30 minutes on the phone talking to the doctor. Yeah. And she was kind of laying out possible plans, like we're on a downward slope, she told me, and we're just going to manage things day by day right now. And I'm like, whoa, this is big. This is different. Right. And she was calling in a particular prescription that was super important for Glenn's mom to take last night. Yeah. So no problem. This was already after hours, and we left after I got off the phone. I'm like, let's grab a bite to eat. By then the pharmacist will have it. Yep. So we get to the pharmacy and the pharmacist said, I have 2 of the 3. I don't have the third, and it was the most important one. Yeah. And I've already transferred it to the other pharmacy across town. And then she goes, oh, but you won't be able to get there tonight, and they won't be able to get it done until tomorrow morning. And of course, I knew already from talking to the doctor that was the most important prescription that was supposed to be taken last night. So, I'm flooded with guilt, fear. I didn't share that with Glenn. I didn't share that with you. And so we go home, and of course I check on his mom, get her settled for the night. And then, we just watched a show and then got ready for bed. And that's when I was, rude to you, but it's like, wow, I didn't process all that. Yeah. Right. And so that's what stays in my body and my mind. And then my reaction to you didn't make sense in that moment. But when you go, okay, what was happening with me? What was behind that was all that stuff I wasn't processing. And I was even thinking, which is, that is part of when you're a caretaker and Glenn's, as many of you know, Glenn's mom lives with us. And so I'm thinking, are we going to wake up to her not being with us in the morning? As in, what is this night going to be like? And just that going to bed with those thoughts and emotions. And, and I know you have a lot of your own wounding with her. And so I think even right in this moment, you're probably in a different place, than I am. And it's the topic today of just not resisting your own everything. Right. For me, it was, I didn't need to resist that guilt I was feeling, that thought of, we should have come right here. We shouldn't have stopped and gotten a bite to eat. And it's that's that resisting, right? It's the should or the shouldn't conversation that I'm having in my head. And that is a resisting of your own energy. Yeah. And instead of leaning in and going, okay, what's happening with me? Wow, I'm feeling a lot of guilt. And to process that. And, logistically, the pharmacist had already said they can't fill it till tomorrow morning. Like she had already said it, but that didn't change my experience. That didn't change that I felt guilt, that maybe I could have done one more thing,
Right.
you know, and it's my fault that I didn't do one more thing.
Right.
Yeah, and perfect example of just ignoring what's happening for you and just trying to be positive, focus on the positive, which again,
Yeah,
as we're talking
yeah.
about, that's the message that most people, the creed, the mantra that, choose joy. But that's very real for you in that moment, what's happening. And if you don't process that, it will dam up, it will build up. And that's why we say live a dam-free life. Let the river of emotion flow. And I also try to, we always try to convey that we're just pilgrims on the journey. We miss stuff.
Yeah.
We don't get a free pass just because we wrote a book about the connection codes, which would be nice, but we don't. So when we miss, we're just like everybody else. It's the exact same thing. We're just like Tira and Wes. We're just like anybody that's experiencing the human condition. Same thing, just like for us.
You know, I do want to do a almost pause right at this second and remind, especially listeners who are new to this journey, that the power of doing the core emotion wheel every day is for you to tune in to your emotions. You know, we get emails sometimes where people go, hey, you know, this is easy for me, but my partner is really struggling, or they can only connect to joy. And I totally relate to that from the early days of this journey. But I know that for me, it's the curiosity. And I would love it if we could all be just plugged, up to a brain scan. Like, how cool would that be? Because when I hear from listeners that say, well, my spouse only experiences joy, it's like, that's not what a brain scan would tell them. And so it's kind of that, wow, let's just say you can, in your home, devise a way to put yourself on a brain scan. Just slow down enough to go, let me look at my brain scan. Let me pay attention to what is happening for myself and to realize that something is blocking that ability to get yourself there where you can go, okay, wow. So this is firing all day long in my brain. I am just not paying attention. I don't know how to access that. And to go, this tool is part of the thing that helps people access what is happening. And, for me, even in this moment where the last 48 hours have been big and different and my body feels it, then I'm like, I'm so thankful for these tools where I can go, okay, what is happening? And I mean, multiple times in multiple conversations, and probably mostly yesterday, I said, what I can express is that I feel overwhelmed, but I know that's not a core emotion. So I got to dig deeper. So what is happening with me? What is that? What is happening? What's the feeling? And that's when I got to just wow, I feel fear that I can't put into motion all the things that need to be put into motion right now. And that I feel guilt that I'm dealing with this. I mean, it's like, I don't know how to shift and slow down enough to give it the attention it needs. And I feel guilt that I can't be there for everybody,
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I have two big thoughts about what both of y'all have just said. And the first one is that I would even argue that by processing these harder emotions, the ones you want to avoid, the fear, the shame, the sad, that you actually could live a more joyful life.
Yes.
Because then you have more space for the joy because you're getting them out of your backpack that you're carrying around. You're getting that weight off of you. So you actually can be a more overall joyful person. Wow. And now that does come with the caveat that you are going to have really hard 48 hours. You could have a really hard month, where if you have the loss of a loved one, a hard diagnosis, a loss of a job, like you will have those seasons of the backpack where you are continuously processing the sadness and the pain and the fear and everything. But as a whole, by doing it in these little bites throughout the day, overall, you can be more joyful. And then my second thought that I want people to recognize, and something that y'all have just shared in this example, is that when we have an emotion, so Phyllis, last night, you were experiencing guilt in that initial moment and fear, which I'm not you, so you may not have experienced. That sounds like a pretty high level of fear. The fear of grandma not making it through the night, that's a pretty high level of fear. And now, so you have these two emotions, and you resisted those emotions unintentionally. And so that creates a flood. And we all know, if you've been listening to the connection codes for more than 2 episodes, that when you're flooded, you're a dumber version of yourself. And so that's what then opens you up to easily snapping at your partner, making sideways comments, distancing yourself from others, like whichever personality type you tend to fall into. So when we're coming into our homes and we're snapping or we're distant, we're one of those things, because we've resisted our own energy all day long. And we need to take a few moments, get the core emotion wheel out if you actually need to see it in person to do it, and dissect what's happening with you, so you can live then a more joyful life.
Yeah, well, I'm reminded of, early on, back when Phyllis's mom was passing away, that, Phyllis would say, "Oh, I don't have time to be sad." And I would say, "Babe, I'm not trying to get you to be sad. You are sad. That's already true. We're not introducing this. Hey, babe, one goal today is for you to be really sad." Well, that's ridiculous. That's not what's happening. So for me to, which a lot of people did from good intentions, they'd be like, "Well, your mom's going to be in a better place. She's lived a good long life," which made it worse for Phyllis, not better. And again, I'm not judging the people. I think they had good motivation, and it just doesn't work. So we're not trying to get people to experience this. They already are. These things are happening. They are firing the brain. And I think about that. I love what you said, Cutie, as far as people having a brain scan. That's kind of, it's a cheap brain scan, the core emotion wheel and the 3 phrases plus the 4th phrase. We're scanning our brain to go, so what is happening with me? What am I missing here? What am I missing? Oh, there's some guilt. Oh, there's some fear. And we're scanning, if you will, the brain to figure out, what am I experiencing, what's happening with me, and then to get to the 4th phrase. So what do I need? Oh, I need to process this a lot more because it's really punching me in the face. It's strangling me. And we just did a quote unquote brain scan. And the same with the core emotion wheel. You're sitting down with the core emotion wheel. Well, you're scanning the brain. What's happening in my brain? What have I experienced today? And you're going back over what happened to make sure that the limbic system is cleared out. So that's really good.
Well, I'm thinking about how connection codes grew out of our story, our marriage. A lot of focus has been on, this is a great tool to conquer conflict between you and your spouse. I think where we've missed is the very topic we're talking about today, is that this is how to be an individual that is very healthy.
Yes.
And that you need this. Right. Each one of us needs this, whether we're partnered or not partnered. Yep. And I do feel guilt that we've not said it enough.
Yeah.
Like, this is about you being the best version of you.
Yeah.
And for so many reasons. And we all know and talk about more than ever out there that, if we don't process emotion, they get stored in our bodies and they start to affect our immune system. And then we open ourselves up to other physical issues and diseases and problems within our bodies. And so you go, oh, wow. So what we're saying is, again, going back to, don't be afraid of being afraid. And to me, I've shared a lot, especially in the last few episodes, about fear. For me is a big black hole. I have fear of that black hole. So I want to avoid that black hole because I have so much fear of it. And that is so unhealthy for my body. It's the fear of the fear, right? It's that fear of that. And so it's like, even for me, and maybe that's why that struck me so much in that show, and I wrote it down. Don't be afraid of being afraid. And I thought immediately the vision that came into my mind in that instant was that black hole. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how much has this affected me in my life is the fear of that. And so it's realizing that's just unhealthy for me. Right. That affects me every day. And so, if you're listening and you have maybe kind of missed with this as far as thinking this is just a tool to conquer conflict in your marriage, and you're like, well, he doesn't like it, I don't like it, she doesn't like it, whatever. And you have resistance there to realize, wait a minute, this is, and I love the way you just painted that. Like, this is a very cheap way versus a brain scan. Right. And, I don't even know what it would cost to go get a brain scan done. And, I do know that we live in a high tech world now, and it wouldn't surprise me if in my lifetime we all have this ability to have something on our wrist that constantly tells us, ooh, high levels of fear, high levels of sad, high levels of lonely, oh, high levels of joy. Look at that. That day may come, but for most of us, that is not today. Yeah. And so this is a really inexpensive way to have your own brain scanning ability in your home and in your car and wherever you are.
Right. Well, and even with a brain scan, you have to go to the clinic, so that's only going to tell you in that, 10-minute segment. So we want people to be able to do this throughout their day, because that's what, again, we're hardwired to do. That's what babies do. They convey, they process all the time, and they don't know not to. It's not until much later, sometime for some of us, hopefully years, before we start getting told, don't cry, don't be sad, don't feel that way. And so then we get knocked off course, we get reprogrammed. I do have to give a caveat for all you Connection Code purists out there. I just want to advocate for them, because I know somebody's out there going, wait a minute, you're telling them not to be afraid of being afraid. You're telling them not to feel fear about feeling fear. Well, if you feel that fear, process the first fear and then process the second fear. So we get what you're saying. But the point is simply that go ahead and feel the fear. Go ahead and allow yourself to be human, to experience what you experience, and to process that. And that's the path to all of this joy that we're talking about.
100%. What you just said, that is the path to the joy. Yeah. It is taking off your backpack. It is processing. It's not resisting yourself. Right. And it is 100% about you as the individual, which you are one half of a partnership. And so if you can become a healthier version of yourself, you make every room you walk into better. Every situation that you are in, you are bringing a newness. You are bringing a level of emotional intelligence that other people are searching for. Right. You are able to reach your goals in your career, in your work life. That we've heard from people that started the Connection Codes a couple of years ago. They quit their job. They now started their own business. They were able to stop resisting the fear of what they actually wanted in life and started chasing their dreams and have seen tremendous results from that. And so now we are actually going to go into the core emotion wheel. So this is your first time listening. This is our tool that we've been referring to this whole episode, that is a way of scanning your brain and seeing what is firing in it. If you would like to download the resources of this wheel and watch a video that's more in depth on how to use it appropriately, you can go to connectioncodes.co/core emotion wheel or podcast, and I'll link it in the show notes. You can click there and you can watch Glenn and Phyllis explain this wheel in more detail. But we like to end every episode by doing this wheel. So one, you know what it sounds like, and two, because it's really relatable. You really learn that many of us are struggling with very similar things. Our experiences may be different, but Phyllis is sad today. Maybe oh, I've experienced that sad before, and it connects us with each other.
Yeah. Well,
you want to start?
Sure. So right now, just so much sadness, with my mom, just, even just thinking about my whole life with her and that relationship that was just so stunted, and just to think that her life is coming to a conclusion. Yeah, that's just really, really deep. I feel guilt just that you handle so much and you're so amazing at it, and I'm not. I miss with so many things in that endeavor. A lot of joy in that, just that you're partnered with me. I mean, it's amazing what you do for so many people. I mean, everybody adores you and is so blessed by you. Anger that, I wish I'd known this. The connection goes so long ago, and I wish my mother, had known that. And that's the reason that we're driven, that we have anger to get this out, because people so desperately need it. Some shame in that, I just get so lost with some relationships, but with my mom, I'm like, oh, I just don't even know, what to do, how to do it. Certainly logistical stuff, but, relational stuff as well. Lots of hurt, a lifetime of hurts off and on with that.
Yeah.
A little bit of hurt last night with you, just in that moment where we missed. Lonely, of course, with my mom. I think this is an issue-specific wheel about my mom, but so much loneliness, not feeling seen and heard by her. Again, probably most of my life, which is a lot. What am I missing? Fear. Oh gosh, so much fear. I don't know what the heck. And I kind of don't want to know the future, but I kind of do, because it'd just be nice to know what, what the next day, the next week, the next 6 weeks, month, year, whatever, holds, because we don't know that. A lot of fear about how things will play out. I think I got close to 8.
Joy.
Oh, I said that just for you. Getting to have you as a partner. It's unbelievable. I mean, I need you so much.
Yeah. So I think I've already done part of the wheel just on the podcast. Guilt that I was rude to you last night. Guilt that I felt guilt over the whole getting to the pharmacy not earlier, I think I do feel shame at times that I'm not more compassionate in this moment. Feel lonely and just I'm the tasker, so it's often falls on me to make things happen, and right now it just seems like a lot of decisions and a lot that needs to shift. Sad. Definitely feel the sad that just she is experiencing, and I feel sad in the changes that are happening with her. Let's see, hurt. I think that I do feel hurt, even though I was the one that was rude. I feel hurt that, like, almost like I need you to be a little more aware of what I'm carrying right now. So I felt some hurt in that. Anger. I think that the anger in the last few days is just how some people respond, and that's I just feel anger in how sometimes in a difficult situation like this, the decisions that we're having to make, I feel anger when there's not more support from especially your side of the family. Did I get all 8? Joy? I haven't said joy. So, I there is a lot of joy in just having so many people in my life that I can turn to in an instant and process all of the emotions, and I get a ton of ooze. And I'm so thankful for that, because wow, it feels so different than when someone jumps in and starts to try to either, comfort me or even give me their advice, or like, that doesn't even feel good. It's like, just please ooh me. That's really what I need. And I've gotten a lot of that lately. So a lot of joy in that.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. That's super vulnerable, and I know that our listeners that have experienced caretaking, which so many people have.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's talked about enough. We talk a lot about parenthood, becoming parents, having small children, but we don't talk a lot about then caring for our parents at some point. And, I've witnessed it from close friends and just what that can do emotionally, physically, mentally to people. So thank you both for sharing your experience with me and with our listeners. And if you're listening and you're like, oh my gosh, I resist my own energy every day. And then I'm bringing that energy into the spaces that I'm in, and I'm snapping at people. I don't want to be snapping at people. I'm distant and I don't want to be distant, but I don't even know where to begin. I would encourage you, one, if you're in a partnered pair, to do our Foundations Masterclass. That masterclass is designed for lasting couples, a marriage relationship or a long-term partnership for you to do. And I say it that way because it is designed for two people to do it together. But if you're an individual and you're listening, you're like, I'm not there yet in that season of life, but I still want these tools. I would direct you to our book, and I will link both of those in our show notes. And I would want partnered pairs because our experienced assignments are so vital for you to do together. And we talk so much about intimate relationships in that course. So you get value in that masterclass that you can't necessarily get in the book to apply to your marriage.
Yeah.
But the book has all of these tools, all of these resources for you to begin sorting those emotions out, processing, spending 60 seconds to figure out what is happening in your body and giving yourself identity so you can show up in your life, and be a more joyful person by taking off your backpack. And so we are so, so grateful that you show up every week. For those of you that have left us 5-star reviews on the podcasting app and on Spotify and on YouTube, have subscribed to us, it truly means the world to us. So we are super, super grateful. You bring us so much joy, and we do all of this because
You need this.
You deserve this. So let's do this.
let's do